I walked through the front doors like I didn't own the building. No tailored suit, no entourage, just jeans, a clean tee, and worn-in boots. I kept my hands in my pockets, letting the air conditioning cool the back of my neck as I stood in the lobby. Silent, unnoticed, the receptionist didn't even glance up. I took a few steps forward, close enough to hear her lean toward the girl beside her and mutter, "Another one looking for a rental. He can't afford." The girl snorted behind her coffee cup. "Watch, he'll ask about the penthouse." I smiled, not because it was funny, just familiar. They didn't know me, and that was the point. I cleared my throat. "Still nothing." "Excuse me," I said, calm, clear. "I'm here to ask about a few properties." Finally, the receptionist glanced up, eyes sweeping over me like I tracked dirt across the floor. "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "Then I'm afraid we're fully booked today." The other woman, clipboard tucked tight to her chest, jumped in. "You can try next week." Maybe I didn't move, just looked past them. Down the hallway where glass doors showed a glimpse of the office beyond. Laughter echoed faintly. The manager's voice rang out. "Tell him that's not how we do things around here." More laughter, the kind that comes with shared power, the kind that doesn't expect to be overheard. I tilted my head. Could I speak with a leasing agent? The receptionist sighed, tapping her nails on the desk. "Sir, we're not a walk-in center. We deal with serious clients only." "What defines serious?" I asked, eyes steady. She blinked. "Bank pre-approval, proof of income, scheduled tours through our online portal. You know, real interest." I nodded slowly, pretending to absorb the rules like they applied to me. "Got it," I said. "Thanks for the clarification." I turned and walked to the lounge area, sat on the edge of a leather chair, and pulled out my phone, opened the company's public site, and booked an appointment under a different name. Marcus Taylor, preferred buyer, requesting private viewing. Noted interest in 2 of our luxury listings. I looked up. No one was watching, or rather they were, but only enough to make sure I left soon. My phone buzzed. "Appointment confirmed for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Slipped the phone back in my pocket and stood upas. I passed the desk again. The receptionist spoke to her clipboard friend without lowering her voice. They always think they're the exception. My jaw tensed, but I didn't stop. Just before I pushed the door open, I heard the manager again from inside. He couldn't even spell escrow. The whole room burst out laughing. I walked outside. The sunlight too bright, too loud. My reflection in the door showed a man they couldn't be bothered to help, couldn't respect, wouldn't recognize. Not. I thought, let's see how far this goes. I stepped into the real estate office with a little too much hope clinging to me. The front lobby was slick glass, chrome, and a fake orchid on the counter. He'd dressed the part, clean navy polo, beige slacks, leather loafers, and my best cologne. I even carried a portfolio. The receptionist didn't look up when I entered. I cleared my throat. "Hi, I wanted to ask about the lakeside property 2-bed, the one with the rooftop deck." Her eyes flicked up, then down again. "You need to speak to a manager. Sure, is one available?" She tapped something on her keyboard, sighed like I'd already wasted her time, then nodded toward the hallway. "Jason will see you second door." Jason. I'd seen his name on the company's website next to a picture of him shaking hands with a smiling white couple. He looked smaller in person. Or maybe it was just his energy tight-clipped, like he was holding in irritation. "He didn't stand." "You had an appointment?" "No, but I saw the listing online." And he cut me off with a flat smile. "We don't show those kinds of properties without appointments or financial pre-approval." I blinked. "I have documentation right here, bank statements, pre-approval, income verification." He didn't even reach for the folder. "Still, we typically don't entertain walk-ins for high-end listings typically." I raised an eyebrow. "So is that your policy, or just something you enforce selectively?" Jason's lips tightened before he could speak. Another agent, blonde, mid-40s, typing away at the next desk, looked up. "You people always waste time. It's never serious." I turned slowly toward her. "You people." She didn't flinch, just went back to typing like I'd never spoken. I looked back at Jason. "Did you hear that?" He was already standing. "I think we're done here, right?" I clenched my jaw, my hands stiff at my sides. "I bet if my name was Michael Whitmore, you'd be handing me an espresso and a brochure." Silence. The receptionist was suddenly busy stapling something that didn't need stapling. I turned to leave, and that's when I caught him, an older black janitor, standing off to the side with his mop and bucket. He didn't say a word, just looked at me with something like shame or maybe recognition. Our eyes met. His lingered. Then he looked away out in the parking lot. The heat hit harder than before. My palms were still sweating. I pulled out my phone, opened the site again. This time, I used a different name, a whiter name, Colin Bradford. Same email, different alias. I booked the same viewing and I bitter. Let's see how they welcome Colin. The collar of my charcoal suit sat stiff against my neck. I'd picked it intentionally tailored, clean, the kind of fabric that whispers, "He doesn't wait." My shoes echoed across the marble floor of the same lobby that barely registered me yesterday. This time, the receptionist snapped to attention like I was royalty. "Good morning, Mr. Taylor," she said, her smile stretched tight. "We've prepared champagne and brochures for you." Sir, yesterday, I was invisible. Today, I was a Siri." Let my lips twitch. Not quite a smile. "Appreciated. I hope Jason's ready for me." "Oh, absolutely." He cleared his schedule. She gestured like she was unveiling a throne. I walked past her without a word. Jason met me at the hallway, all teeth and charm. "Now, Mr. Taylor, welcome to our firm. We're honored to have you. Please right this way." We sat in a glass-walled conference room, sunlight pouring in like judgment. "We pride ourselves on serving high-end clientele," he began, sliding a glossy folder toward me. Discretion, excellence, and top-tier listings. I flipped through the brochure slowly. Properties I already knew, some I already owned. I glanced up, and your current clients. Entrepreneurs, old money folks, some celebrity names we keep confidential. Of course, I let the silence stretch before tapping a listing with my finger. This one, 2248 Monarch Drive. Jason's eyes lit up. Ah, beautiful. Peace, private driveway, Lakeview. Hardwood throughout. Seller's been quiet about the sale, just wants to move it off market. I tilted my head. What do you know about the owner? He leaned back like he was about to gossip. Some old white guy. Far as I've heard, not someone you'd know, doesn't like attention. My stomach turned. But I kept my face still. I studied the photo, that porch swing. I installed it, the windows. Chosen with my mother. I closed the folder. What would you say? I asked, folding my hands, if the owner wasn't an old white guy. Jason laughed, confused. Well, that's just what we've always assumed. I mean, properties like this usually don't. He stopped himself. I leaned in. Don't. What? His smile twitched. Don't change hands often. Interesting, I said. Voice, even because I am the owner. His eyes widened. I'm sorry. I slid my ID across the table. My real name, my face, the deed number scribbled in my handwriting. Swallowed the room. He swallowed. Mr. Tail Moloch. This must be a miscommunication. No, yesterday was the miscommunication. I stood slowly. You had every chance to treat me like a human being, but the moment I wore different clothes and gave you a name you liked better, I became royalty. Jason tried to speak. I raised my hand, save it, as I walked past the front desk. The receptionist froze. I didn't stop, but just before the door closed behind me, I said, loud enough for both of them to hear. Tell your team the owner came in. You failed the inspection. Mind if I take a quick call in private? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Professional. Jason nodded eagerly. Of course. Sir, you can use the executive suite just down that hall. Third door. I smiled. Thanks, I'll find my way. My shoes barely made a sound down the corridor. Third door. I walked past it. My fingers grazed the brushed steel handle of the room I was actually looking for. Operations locked. I pulled out the backup access card I had coded myself months ago. One beep, one click. I was in it. Smelled like stale coffee, and dust. Rows of monitors glowed in the low light. Time-stamped feeds blinking quietly across the screen. I found the file directory for yesterday, 9:06 a.m. Lobby cam 1 play there. I was hoodie. Jean standing at the front desk. The receptionist barely looked up. Her voice bled through the low-quality audio. Another one looking for a rental he can't afford. A man, curly head, khaki pants, leaned over and whispered, think he knows this is luxury property. They laughed. The woman mimicked my voice. Excuse me. I saw a listing. He slapped the desk. These types always try to act rich. My jaw tightened. Next file conference. Cam 2:12 p.m. A black woman in a navy blouse sat across from the same receptionist. Nervous hands, clear eyes. I just wanted to ask about the listing on Broad. The receptionist cut her off. We don't cater to Section 8 types. Sorry. The woman froze. Excuse me. Jason passed behind her, smirking. You're wasting your time. Ma'am, try something in your range. The woman looked down, quiet, defeated. She gathered her bag slowly and left. I paused the footage and stared at the frozen frame of her face. Brows knitted, lips trembling, not surprised, just tired. I clenched my fists. My hands were shaking. I found the export button, labeled the files, compressed them. I opened my inbox to HR. Attached everything. Subject line urgent. Staff conduct review. Racial discrimination. Evidence. Body. See attached footage from 8/3. This is not isolated. I'll be handling this personally. I hovered over send for a second. My finger tight on the mouse. They never saw me as human. They still don't click. Sent. I exhaled slowly and closed the screen. Then I stood, straightened my tie, and headed back to the showroom. Let's see how many masks fall today. He was sweeping the edge of the break room when I walked in quiet rhythm. Practiced, eyes low, shoulders heavy. He didn't flinch when I opened the fridge. You always take your lunch this late? I asked, peeling open the lid on my container. He looked up, then back down. Only when the suits are out. Less mess. I sat across from him at the corner table. The cheap plastic chair creaked under me. Yesterday, I said you looked at me. His broom slowed. He leaned it against the wall, not looking at me yet. I knew who you were, he said softly. Soon as you walked in, you didn't say anything. I didn't want to lose my job. I let that sit. I chewed slowly, not tasting a thing. You did what you had to. I said, I get it, but silence helps them. Doesn't matter who you meant to protect. He finally looked at me then, not defensive, not ashamed, just tired. I ain't proud of it, he said, but I've been here 12 years, watched a lot, and they don't change, not when nobody's looking. What have you seen? He hesitated. A black woman came in with her daughter last month, dressed sharp, real estate lawyer. I think they laughed after she left, said her big words didn't match her credit score, said the kid probably didn't even have a real dad. My throat burned. They always say it when no one records it, he continued. Always. I looked down at my food, pushed it aside. What's your name? I asked. Clarence. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the embossed card, the one with no title, just a phone number and my initials in Silveri, slid it across the table. He stared at it like it might explode. I'll need someone like you at the top floor soon. I said someone who sees everything, someone who doesn't flinch. His fingers hovered over the card. He didn't touch it yet. You serious? I nodded. I don't hand that to just anyone. He picked it up, eyes wide, then tucked it deep into his pocket like it was sacred. They won't see you coming, he said, a quiet grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. They didn't see me at all, I replied. He nodded once. Then let's keep it that way until it's too late for him. They didn't even bother to hide their confusion when I walked into the conference room. Some looked right past me, some frowned, trying to place my face. One whispered, not quietly enough, what is he doing here? I walked straight to the front, no hesitation, no nods, no fake smiles. The two executives flanked me, stone-faced legal counsel trailed behind, briefcase already unlatched. I stood at the head of the table. Every chair was filled. Everyone suddenly quiet. He cleared my throat, didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. I called this meeting. Not them. Mouths twitched. Some leaned back. One agent blinked like she was waiting for someone to say, just kidding, I'm sure most of you remember me. I said, but let me reintroduce myself. Malik Taylor, the man you dismissed 2 days ago. The one you told didn't look like a buyer. A few faces dropped, others stayed tight, fake smiling like they still believed they could spin this eye. Let the silence drag. The weight of it was mine now. Oh, I added, cool and deliberate. I also own this building and the company that owns your contracts. I was watching, listening. No. One moved. A legal rep clicked play on the speakerphone. These types always try to act rich. Gasp, we don't cater to Section 8 types. One woman clutched her pearls. Literally, he sounded like he just learned English. Laughter on the tape clear. Ugly. I looked around the room. Slowly, no one made eye contact. A manager, Greg, stood up. Palms out. It was a joke. I didn't flinch. You laughed at a man who signs your paycheck. He froze. You smiled in my face when you thought I was rich. You sneered at me when you thought I wasn't. But the truth. I leaned forward, voice low, steady. You never saw me as human, just a type, Mr. Taylor. A woman stammered, if we had known. I cut her off. You'd have treated me better. Is that it? Her lip quivered. She sat down. I scanned their faces, red, pale, blank. Shame wore different clothes on each of them. I didn't come for apologies. Don't perform. This isn't about what you say now, it's about what you showed me. Silence. I turned to legal. She handed me a stack of papers, effective immediately. The following agents are suspended pending investigation. I began reading the names. Some sobbed, some stormed out. I didn't look away once. You were comfortable, mocking black voices in rooms you thought were private. I said, well, I heard you and I don't forget voices. Clarence stood quietly in the back watching, just like before, only this time he was smiling. I'll begin, the HR woman said. Her voice like paper being torn. She stood at the front of the dining hall, same place they used to parade new menu specials. Now it was a courtroom. I sat in silence, arms crossed, not in defiance, just trying to stop them from shaking. She looked at the paper in her hands. Chase Willard, dismissed for discriminatory conduct. Chase's laugh was dry and loud, like he still didn't believe this was real. You can't be serious. I didn't say anything worse than what everyone else was saying. Exactly. I cut in. That's the point. Piper Doyle terminated. Piper flinched. Her eyes darted to me like I was supposed to save her. I didn't move. You let them call me the help, I said softly. You giggled when they said I must have come in through the back. I didn't start it, she said, voice cracking, but you kept it going. She opened her mouth, then shut it. The HR rep kept reading. Liam Brooks terminated. Amanda Kessler terminated. Gasps started to ripple through the room. Nobody spoke, not even the ones trying to look indifferent. He stood slowly, eyes sweeping the room. My staff, my kitchen, my betrayal. I locked eyes with a prep cook who'd looked away the day they mocked my accent. I looked at the bartender who'd called me boy behind my back. You think silence makes you innocent, I said, stepping forward. If you watched and stayed quiet while they belittled me, while they laughed at my name, my skin, my story, that's not neutrality, that's complicity. A heavy pause, one that tasted like guilt. Then a voice broke the silence. I wanted to help. It was another youngest assistant, barely out of college, voice trembling. I didn't know how. I looked at her, really looked. Her hands were wringing the edge of her cardigan. Her voice wasn't fake. It cracked in places she couldn't control then learn. I said, keeping my voice steady, start today. She blinked, confused. Today's your first lesson in decency. Her eyes welled, and she nodded like it was a promise to herself. I turned back to the rest. For the rest of you who watched and smirked, made jokes and thought I wouldn't hear, this place is no longer yours. It was never yours to begin with. Wait, Chase barked. Trying one last time. You're overreacting. Man, it was just talk, we all joked. I walked over to him, close enough to smell the sour sweat on his collar. Talk has weight, I said, and your jokes came with chains. He looked away, turned to the HR rep. We're done here. Those names are final. She nodded. They'd been processed. Security's ready. As those fired began to shuffle toward the door, heads down, I felt something shift. The power in the room, it had always been mine. They just never wanted to admit. I looked to the few still standing, the ones who hadn't clapped, hadn't laughed. If you're still here, I said, it's because I believe you can change. Don't waste that chance. A deep silence fell over the room. Not the kind you fill with noise, the kind you let settle because for once finally they were listening. You serious? He whispered, eyes wide, mop still in his hand. As serious as I've ever been. I said, you're the new facility supervisor. He blinked twice, like his brain was trying to catch up with his ears. I cleaned floors, man, and you watched everything. I said, voice low but steady. You saw the truth when no one else cared to. He stared at the mop. I could see his knuckles tighten. I didn't say anything. He mumbled, didn't speak up. You stayed, that counts. You kept this place running while they made jokes about people like us. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the offer letter. Now it's time to build it with us. He took the envelope like it might bite my daughter. He said after a moment, voice cracking, she's gonna freak out. She thinks I'm invisible. Not anymore. You sure this the front entrance? One of the new agents asked, smirking. I thought we were getting the backdoor special. Not today. I said, not ever again. We stood in the sunlight outside the glass doors, sharp suits, braided hair, laughter that carried power. I looked around and saw strength, experience, people who had been turned away too many times and walked back in anyway. One of them, Keisha, adjusted her ID badge. They overlooked my resume 6 times. She said, I guess they didn't think someone with a name like mine ran top market real estate accounts well. I smiled. Now you run this department. Her laugh wasn't light, it was earned. The press crowd outside was already building. Microphones, flashbulbs, curiosity disguised as politeness ready. Someone whispered. I stepped up to the podium, took a slow breath. This wasn't about property, I began. This was about people, about how we're seen, especially when no one knows who we are. Cameras clicked. I kept going. It was about what happens in the break rooms, the hallways, when the client's gone and the mask comes off. It was about what you really believe when you think no one's watching. Silence, no coughs, no shifting, just them listening. They never saw me as the owner, I said, voice calm because I didn't look like what they imagined. I leaned forward. But I've always owned this. My hands gripped the podium, not because I needed to hold myself steady, but because I wanted to remember this feeling, the weight of truth finally spoken aloud. And this time, they were the ones who had to listen. The air outside felt different, not lighter, heavier, like it finally carried the weight it was always meant to. Like it wasn't just oxygen anymore, but proof. I stood across the street, hands in my pockets, eyes fixed on the door that once rejected me. Small crowd gathered beneath the awning. Some clapped, some just stood silent, lips pressed tight, eyes glossy. And right there above it all, gleaming in brushed metal, TOI Law Equity, built by EVER Wyoming. Not just a name, a statement, a correction about time. An older man muttered beside me. His suit was crisp, his skin the shade of polished mahogany, and his voice cracked just a bit. I stopped coming here years ago. That front desk wouldn't even look me in the eye. They'll look now, I said. He turned to me, really looked. Recognition flickered. You're him, aren't you? The chef. I nodded. Malik, his lips curled into something between a smirk and a sigh. I knew there had to be a reason for all this. He looked up again at the sign. You did good, son. I didn't say thank you. I didn't need to. His eyes said enough. Inside, the front door slid open without hesitation. Funny how glass used to feel like stone when it held judgment. On the other side, Mr. Taylor, the new receptionist, greeted with a smile that reached her eyes. Welcome back. I stepped in. Hardwood floors I helped pick years ago creaked under my boots, and for once no one winced like I didn't belong to. Women in hijabs chatted by the windowed meeting rooms. A dark-skinned teenager in a business suit carried coffee, not as an intern but for his team. And behind the counter, the new security guard, black-bearded, tall, nodded when our eyes met, looking sharp. Malik, he said. Appreciated, Jamal. He grinned. Whole place feel different, huh? I exhaled slowly. Feels like it remembers who built it. Laughter floated from a nearby meeting room. Not forced, not polite, real. As I passed the kitchen, the aroma of fresh thyme and garlic hit me. Someone was cooking. Again, not my recipe. But that was the point. This wasn't just my company anymore. Chef Malik, a voice called out. Soft, surprised, I turned to see Carla, one of our oldest clients, Latina, mid-40s, eyes that missed nothing. She held out her hand, then shook her head and pulled me into a hug instead. I walked out the day they stopped letting you through those doors, she whispered. I'm so damn proud of you. Thank you for coming back. I wouldn't be anywhere else. We stood there for a moment, quiet. Then she leaned back and studied the space. This place was always good, but now it feels right. I looked past her at the glass walls, the clean tables, the people smiling without masks. Took a while. She glanced at the sign outside. Worth it. As I moved through the office, people greeted me, not like I was returning, like I had always been here, like I had always been part of it. No whispers behind my back, no side eyes at my skin, no doubt in their tone. The boardroom sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, bathing the long table in gold. It used to be cold in here, cold and white and stiff now. There were plants in the corners, art by local black artists hung on the walls, and every seat at the table filled with faces that had once been passed over. Someone had written on the whiteboard, next client pitch, Southside Women's Collective. I sat at the head of the table. My seat. Nasiera walked in, one of our junior partners, young, brilliant, unapologetically queer and black. They said you might stop by. She said I had to see it for myself. She gestured around the room. You know, we kept the open profit sharing model you built. Employees get a percentage now. I raised a brow. They let you keep that? No, she smiled. We voted it in. I nodded slowly. Damn proud of you. Her voice softened. It's yours to Malik. No, it's ours now. That's the point. A beat passed. She turned to go, but paused at the door. They never really fired you, she said. Quiet. They just revealed who they were. And then she left me with the silence. I stared out the window. Cars moved. The city breathed. And somewhere in my chest a knot finally loosened. They hadn't won, they never really had. They just signed their own goodbye. Took out the final papers, the ones that made it official, the ones that gave me majority share. I set them on the table, just to feel their weight. I didn't need revenge. Had justice, and as the noise of the office faded to a quiet hum, I let the final thought settle. They fired themselves the moment they dismissed me. I just signed the papers.